For our first two problems here, we need to remember that with a perpendicular bisector, first of all, we need to remember that perpendicular creates right angles, which is what we have noted here. And of course, that will also be a right angle. And then bisector, meaning to cut in half or into two smaller congruent pieces. And that's indicated by the lines here and here, okay? But what we also need to remember is that it means that these two angles are also congruent, as well as these side lengths. So the perpendicular bisector essentially makes everything congruent. So to find the length of CD, which is from here to here, okay, because of that perpendicular bisector, indicated by my blue, the single blue hash marks here, that tells me that it's a bisector, and the right angles tell me that they're perpendicular. That's why I can assume or know, and it has been proven, that CD is congruent to DE. So I can just set these two expressions equal to each other and solve. So 7a plus 11 equals 10a plus 2. I'm going to subtract the 7a from both sides first to keep my variable positive. And 10 minus 7 is 3. Then subtract, because I move the variables to the right, I need to move the constants or my numbers to the left, leaving me with 9 equal to 3a. Divide both sides by 3, so a does equal 3. But let's go back to the question. The question asks, what's the length of CD? So that means I need to plug in the value of 3 into A, or substitute in. So what I have is 7 times 3 is 21, plus 11, which gives me 32, which is answer D. Okay. Here, same situation. Okay, it tells us that JK is congruent to MK. All right, so if those two are congruent, and we have my right angle here, same situation, I have a perpendicular bisector, which means sorry, I misread that. I was looking for a letter here. Let me call it O. Okay, so that means JO is congruent to OM. Okay, so each piece is 7.1. Okay, but it wants the length of JM, so that's the entire base. So I need to add 7.1 plus 7.1 to get total, and that's going to give me 14.2 for the total length. That your base of the triangle will be congruent if these side lengths or the legs of the triangle are congruent, and if the base of the two smaller pieces of the base are congruent, then the legs are congruent. So again, essentially, perpendicular bisector creates 3 separate congruent pieces of a triangle. Question 3, same situation. Okay, I have the perpendicular bisectors. So these two pieces are congruent. it also means that the angles here are also bisected. So this angle also equals 23 degrees. But at first it asks me for the length of CB. Okay. So CB is congruent to AB. So I'm going to do exactly like I did for question number 1. I need to set both equations equal to each other because they are congruent, and I need to solve for x. Oops, sorry. I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides to give me 5x. Add 4 to both sides, so I have 5x equals 5. And when I divide both sides by 5, I get x equals 1. But again, it didn't ask for what x was equal to. It asked for the length of CB. Now, x equals 1, so 4 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is going to give me 6. So CB is 6, but if you notice here, that is not an option. So the question is, where did I make my mistake? This is a very good example of when you don't write out your work, you can easily make a mistake. And my mistake was in mental math. So while I wrote the expression correctly, attempting to solve for CB, I should have, if I had written it out correctly, I probably would have caught my mistake. Because what I said was that 4 times 1 was 5, and it's not. So this is a case of simple calculation error. Because if I stopped and slowed down, 4 times 1 is 4 plus 1. So my answer is 5. I think I got confused because I put the 5s there. But, so if you easily make mental math errors, it really does help to write it out, because as you can see, I made a very simple mistake because I was going too fast. Okay, so we know the length of CB is 5, and we want to know also the measure of BDA. Okay, so BDA. Well, we already determined that because of the perpendicular bisector, the bisector doesn't just cut the two bases of the triangle congruent, it also creates two congruent angles. So BDA is also 23 degrees. And those are the 3 properties of a perpendicular bisector. One being that your angles will be congruent, as shown here in question 3.